Number 3.
Our countdown of the freakiest flyers in the animal kingdom continues in the middle of a tropical ocean. Down here, there are plenty of hungry mouths looking for defenseless prey. That's why this small fish has a cunning escape plan. It's a flying fish, and it hides from predators by leaping out of the water. By beating its tail up to 70 times per second, the fish produces enough speed to burst through the surface. Then it spreads its long fins and glides through the air. It can sail above the ocean at speeds of up to 35 miles an hour. Scientists believe the fish increases its distance and time in the air by using updrafts from the windward faces of waves with a glide time of up to 30 seconds. At the end of a glide, a flying fish can either fold up its wings and fall back into the sea, or drop its tail into the water and re-accelerate for another flight. This capacity for successive flights increases the fish's total air time. The flying fish shoots into number 3 in the countdown because one fish was reported sailing an incredible 400 yards above the water. The aerodynamic shape of their flying fins is very similar to that of a bird's wing because the bones of the fin produce a curved profile helping to generate lift during flight. This wing is so effective that some flying fish have been recorded gliding 36 feet above the sea. There are even accounts of them landing on the decks of ships. However, these freaky fish are left in the wake of our next contender.
Number 2.
Hollywood has always been fascinated with our next freaky flyer. Created in 1897, Bram Stoker's bloodthirsty villain Dracula was famous for his terrible appetite and his effortless transformation into our next contender. Swooping in to number 2 in the countdown is the bat. Bram Stoker was a bit vague on how Dracula actually turned into the small flying mammal, perhaps because it requires a huge transformation. It wouldn't take long for Dracula to realize that bats don't fly by flapping their arms like a bird. Instead, you'd only use your hands. But to be like a bat, your fingers would need to grow really, really long, and each hand would need to be covered with a thin membrane. The bat's wing is very delicate and rips easily. Luckily, the bat's membrane is among the fastest growing of all mammalian tissues, so small tears quickly heal. The surface of a bat's wing is covered with touch-sensitive receptor cells, much like those found on our fingertips. These cells, stimulated by turbulent airflow, alert the bat to adjust the shape of its wing for more efficient flight. In Australia, fruit bats are such precise pilots that they can refuel in mid-air. Flying is thirsty work, and drinking is a two-step process for these winged wonders. First, the bats gently skim the surface of the water. Then they land nearby to lick the water from their chest fur before heading away to hunt for the night. Of course, drinking and driving can be bad for your health, especially when there are hungry crocodiles around. Bats fly at night to avoid competition with birds. In their nightly search for sustenance, they travel huge distances. And some bats migrate hundreds of miles to winter hibernation dens, which is why they're number 2 in the countdown. Humans would need their own Batmobile to compete. This freaky flyer would even make Batman jealous. It's the Mahler Sky Car. Hopefully one day it will free you from roadway traffic jams and even allow you to perform mid-air rescues. Invented by California-based aeronautical engineer Paul Mahler, the M400 Sky Car will carry 4 people and have an estimated top speed of 375 miles per hour. The prototype is still being tested, but perhaps soon you'll be able to buy your own Sky Car for a mere $1 million. Bats are far more maneuverable than any Sky Car, but they've had 50 million years to perfect their design.
Number 1.
Our countdown of the most extreme freaky flyers concludes with a mode of transportation that's fascinated Hollywood for decades.
Is this any way to see the world? It's a wonderful world if you'll only take the time to go around it.
Are you formally challenging me to undertake a journey around the world in 80 days?
This is absurd.
It must have sounded absurd back in 1872 when Jules Verne wrote about Phineas Fogg's epic voyage using one of the oldest modes of successful human flight, the balloon. And while the freakiest flyer in our countdown may not travel around the world in 80 days, it does use a very different balloon to float thousands of miles across the sky. Floating in to number 1 is the Spider. Only this freaky flyer creates a balloon out of a most unusual material. After hatching, the spiderling climbs as high as it can. Then it sticks its rear end in the air and starts spinning a parachute. A single thread of silk is light enough to be picked up by the wind and strong enough to carry the spiderling. It's called ballooning because the spiders are completely at the mercy of the wind. A voyage can take them just to the house next door or high up into the jet stream.